Thank you. Well, hello everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. First of all, I acknowledge the First Nations people whose lands we're gathered on today, and I pay my respects to elders past, present and future, and to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people here with us today. My name's Fiona, and today I'm sharing with you a project that started as a seed of an idea at a conference I attended almost 5 years ago. Parks Tasmania shared a case study of a community reserve. It was neglected, full of weeds, illegal dumping was occurring, vandalism was a regular pastime, and it was not a nice place to visit at all. Through a program they introduced that involved community, a local school and the parks team, they worked together to restore the natural environment and created a place that was valued and cared for by the community. What I took away from that was a seed of an idea, that it was a community who was invited into a place to care for it, that it wasn't a one-off clean-up day, but rather a complete package with both environmental and social outcomes for the local community, and that ongoing custodianship was achieved for that small precious pocket of parkland. This got me thinking, and then I headed back to the park I work at and got busy again with everyday work, and this idea was set aside to just brew for a while. So where do I work? Well, you already know that. I work at Sydney Olympic Park. What is the first thing that went into your mind when Sydney Olympic Park was mentioned? Perhaps your mind goes back to the excitement of the Sydney 2000 Olympic and Paralympic Games. Maybe you're thinking of your last excursion to the Royal Easter Show. Perhaps a recent sporting event or concert you attended, or maybe it's that long line you stood in at the vaccination centre just over a year ago. While Sydney Olympic Park is a major events and entertainment precinct, the site also has a mix of other land uses that include parklands, nature reserves, environmental conservation, along with areas for both public recreation, sports and events, residential and business uses. To give some context to the whole park, I'd just like to take you back in time, just for a moment, back to a time before the best games ever, to the beginning. Sydney Olympic Park rests in Wangal Country, on the southern shore of the Madigal or Parramatta River. For millennia, it has been home to the Wangal, a resource-rich gathering place where First Nations people would meet, celebrate and trade. Since 1788, colonial, industrial and military uses saw the destruction of the natural landscape, creating a polluted and industrial wasteland. With a vast site needed to host the Sydney 2000 Olympic and Paralympic Games, the land was reclaimed, remediated, and parklands were re-engineered to contain and manage the 9 million cubic metres of waste. Sustainability was threaded through the development of venues and the delivery of those games, earning our Olympics the title of the Green Games. Remnant natural environments were protected, including the Sydney turpentine ironbark forests, salt marsh and mangrove. Habitat was protected for threatened species that included migratory shorebirds and the iconic green and golden bell frog. Over 400 native plant species, 200 native animal species, 93 bird species, 13 reptile species, 12 microbats, 6 frogs, 3 endangered ecological communities and 2 possums depend upon the park's habitat. It's a bit like the 12 days of Christmas, isn't it? So much. Sydney Olympic Park is known as the home also to elite sport and entertainment facilities, with events bringing over 10 million visitors annually through the suburb for more than 5,000 events, with 50 days being major event days of more than 30,000 event patrons. In 2021, the park has 13,000 workers, along with 5,000 casual staff and 5,800 residents. Sydney Olympic Park is centrally located between where we are now, the Sydney CBD, and the Parramatta CBD, Sydney's 2 largest employment centres. By 2030, it's estimated that over 23,000 people will live at Sydney Olympic Park, and the park will be connected by a station on the Sydney Metro West Line. This new connectivity, created through major infrastructure investment, signals a shift in the future for Sydney Olympic Park. So let's take a quick look at the current population of the park, the residents. They are young, with the median age of 31 years. 2/3 are sinks or dinks. They are ethnically ethnically diverse. So Chinese, Korean and Indian-born millennials are highly represented, and over 3/4 of households use another language other than English. The majority of residents own one car, while 17% have 2 cars and 12% don't drive a vehicle of any kind. Many are renting and working in Parramatta and the CBD. All homes in Sydney Olympic Park are apartments. Most are secure, where residents access their floor only. So homes are secure, but people are disconnected from their neighbours. A new vision has recently been launched for Sydney Olympic Park. This 2050 vision lays out a clear future direction for the park, and it has included engagement at every level with the community. With almost all the land at the park under public ownership, the impending arrival of Metro West, future development can aspire to tackle those big issues of housing affordability and equality, climate change, and create a place that is more focused on the everyday. Importantly, community and health and well-being and the environment are right at the heart of it. So that consultation with the community that was undertaken in preparation for this vision document and planning process identified a glaring gap in the opportunities for community to connect with the place and be involved in actively caring for country. As well, it identified that there was an opportunity to support the building of a connected community. This process outlined some clear outcomes, ideas of activities and ways for the authority to support the community. Some of the outcomes that were identified were creating an informed, engaged and connected community, innovative activations and programs and events that contribute to localism and community building and custodianship. One clear action was to investigate setting up a community volunteering program and develop volunteering initiatives for local custodianship. Volunteering isn't anything new to the park. Volunteers played and have played a valued role at the site before, during and after the Games. Our existing environmental volunteering opportunities played and continue to play a very important role in caring for the natural environment. In 2020 to 21, volunteers donated 878 hours to the Eco-Friends and Park Care programs, a bit lower than previous years, but that's because of that pandemic. The Eco-Friends program is supported by partner organisations whose volunteers conduct a wide range of ecological programs and surveys for the park's ecology and environment team. And this work contributes to the data set that informs the management practices for the park. The Park Care program includes environmental cleanups with place-based talks supervised by the site's park rangers, and they have regular communication by community and corporate groups seeking community service or team building opportunities for their staff, along with casual attendees who register for publicly advertised sessions. Our proposal was to establish a new park care program that would foster guardianship of the parklands, wetlands and waterways of Sydney Olympic Park. We've called this program Neighbours Nurturing Nature. The program centres on the 3 waterways that come through the parkland: Parramatta River, Haslam's Creek and Powell's Creek. It also centres on the 3 communities being in the greater Parramatta Olympic Peninsula, being Newington, Wentworth Point and Sydney Olympic Park. And also with the 3 neighbouring schools being Wentworth Point Public School, Victoria Avenue Public School and Newington Public School. The project scope includes raising awareness of the value and importance of natural spaces and involving the community in activities that will contribute to improving the habitat value, biodiversity, health and amenity of identified project areas across the parklands. So the program will draw on the skills and experience of park staff, including those from our ecology, environment and asset management teams, our education and visitor programs team, and place activation and strategy team, so quite a diverse group of staff. Along the way, we also have started to and intend to further collaborate with like-minded community organisations, including not-for-profit groups and community action networks, to achieve both the social and environmental outcomes. Park staff and partner organisations will facilitate activities for volunteers drawn from our local residents, park workers and local schools, so that they're connecting with a place within the park and can take custodianship over it and become champions for that place. Some potential areas of parkland impacted by human activities and with low habitat and aesthetic values were initially identified as suitable areas. And volunteer activities that we have identified that could be include things such as habitat boxes and rock mounds being installed, water quality monitoring, education engagement activities, removing litter and auditing the litter, weeding, planting, mulching endemic species into that space, seasonal monitoring of wildlife, and creating places for kids to engage in wild or nature play in a more organised way, and also walks and talks by staff and volunteers, and having a junior ranger activity program at that site. The program really is trying to achieve strong social outcomes, as engagement in a common activity will forge connections to the place and between people in the local community. Connecting like-minded people will foster or may foster friendships, we can't make people be friends, and give people of non-English speaking backgrounds chance to practice their English. It'll also provide opportunities for people who are socially isolated to connect with other people, and really importantly, it gives the community a chance to connect with the park managers, the park staff who look after that site as well. And it will help create that sense of belonging to both the community and the place. Connecting people with the place or space gives the community permission to care for the park in a practical way, and it will encourage people to engage with nature and learn about natural systems, and they'll hopefully create an emotional connection to that place and become a park champion. The success of the project will be measured through a few ways, including increased biodiversity of the project areas identified through field surveys. We'll also have community volunteers meeting regularly and involved in care of the project areas, and successful implementation of some nature play areas and some community education programs. Then this next slide just shows you a little model we had created for how we would engage with the community, and the community are at the centre of this. We're giving them permission to help care for a place, provide induction and training that will lead to improving the habitat, some behaviour change in how that area is cared for and how people interact with it. There'll be monitoring and survey of the site and our behaviour. We'll extend the project to another site, share it with other community members, and start right back at the beginning and go around again. We have a slightly different model for when we engage with schools, because we'll probably engage with 1 year of the school, and at the end of that year, those kids will pass the project to the next year. So it's just a slightly different model. So armed with all this brilliant thinking we did, well-brewed ideas from listening to the Parks Tasmania case study all those years ago, we've had time during the COVID lockdown to really consider how we could bring this together. And we have support from our own organisation, commitment from partners and our 3 local schools to commence this project. But what was clear was we needed someone committed to the project to get it established, and that we needed funding. So we submitted an application to the Environmental Trust of New South Wales. As you know, getting funding for a project is a bit like a chicken before the egg process. You have to create a project timeline and get support, come up with what you're going to do, outcome, before you've really got the funding for that. It's a bit like daydreaming and buying a lottery ticket. You never quite think you're going to win. So in 2021, we did receive a modest grant from the Environmental Trust, and that's allowed us to set up a program from scratch. It's been quite challenging to do that, as our organisation itself has been undergoing a lot of change as we integrated further into the Department of Planning and Environment. So our business systems were changing, so we've just needed a dose of patience as well. But we have had some great success. We've created a temporary role, run a recruitment campaign, and appointed an assistant project officer at the start of this year for about 2 to 3 days a fortnight, so it's not much, and they are the go-to person for this project. We've connected with other government volunteer project managers and got some solid tips for setting up our program, so thank you to all of them for supporting us. We created a project EOI for the community on our community engagement platform, MySOP Engage. I'll show you that in a minute. And we've worked with an initial small group of volunteers, about 10 to 12, on shaping the ideas to fit with the project concept we had approved with the grant funding. We found a site at the park for our pilot and conducted initial site inspection and litter clean-up, and some initial surveys and photography of the site. We created risk assessments, code of conduct and a training pathway. We've had to work with our organisational staff to ensure that our standard operating procedures are clear and reasonable, but still allow us to comply with the legislation and guidelines for the management of the parklands. It's really great that we've got commitment at the moment from 2 of our schools. Victoria Avenue have their Koori Connection program students engaging with us for the project, and Newington Public School will be the first group really immersed at the site we've picked because it's right at the back door of their school. Sorry, I'll catch up my slides. There's an example of our public engagement page. And this is the site we've found. We've got approval to use for the project at the back of Sydney Olympic Park, right near the M4 and the suburb of Newington, which you can see in the top left-hand corner. So challenges as well. That's the project area and some nice weeds. So administration's slower as we have to use our outsourced services and navigating our new systems. Keeping to that funded concept project's been difficult because everyone's come in with lots of ideas, and we've had to give those ideas some airtime and consider them and incorporate them. So we had to make sure we're not being distracted by ones that aren't quite on track, such as community art projects. We can do that later. It's been hard to maintain volunteer motivation when we've had to say no to an area they were really keen to work in, improving the habitat behind some of the homes that they live in, because that was actually a fire protection zone in green and golden bellfrog habitat, so it wasn't a suitable site. So it's hard to manage that disappointment. And also navigating our own rules and ownership of the parklands. For example, we have habitat and landscape areas that are managed by different teams within our organisation, and just working out whose bit of land this is and what we can and can't do there. Also fitting in with the schools as they're struggling post-COVID with staffing and finding time, and the ongoing concerns amongst some volunteers and staff and community about COVID. Also, a big learning one for us is our population is young and a lot of renters, so young volunteers move on when they get new job opportunities, and that's a big loss because we lose their skills. Another big challenge has been finding a volunteer management system that meets all the privacy and procurement guidelines for a government agency, keeping everyone's data safe. We're not quite there yet. And also the effort we have to go to reach residents tucked away in those apartments. Also, the turkeys. We imagine we're going to have a lot more challenges in the next few weeks as we weed and plant in the project area. What we've learned so far, that there are many community members interested in engaging with this project, and we're preparing to induct some more volunteers in the coming week, so that's exciting. Not every idea is for now. We can save some for the right season. It's worth setting up our structures and processes properly, and good investment for the longevity of the project. That's something that the trust who funded our project want to see, that we've set it up to continue after the funding stops. We will experience volunteers spending a short bit of time with us and moving on, but we still need to invest in their training and induction process. Rain will have an impact, good and bad, and a pilot is always a good idea because we can iron out some of our processes and improve for the next round. But most importantly is that we can navigate through our own rules and policies, that we're creating a barrier for our community and give them opportunities to volunteer and to care for country. So spring we commenced a lot of work on the site, weeding and planting, and we invite you all to follow our project. You can do that on the MySOP Engage website. And if you'd like to follow that project, or if you live nearby, come and join in. And thank you for the opportunity to share this with you today.